A very good afternoon, and thanks for that brief but generous introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and what I'm going to do over the next few minutes is talk to you or share certain thoughts, stuff that has worked for me over the years, and let's see, probably there would be some stuff that you could mull over and may make sense for you. So let me step back and first share with you or tell you about one of my most prized possessions till today. So it was a book, a small little book, which was gifted to me by my father when I was about 13 or 14 years of age. It's called Jonathan Livingston's Seagull, right? A seagull, as you can see there. And the author is a gentleman called Richard Bach. Now, the book still stands at the corner of my bookshelf in my home till today. And of course, it was extremely powerful because the learnings that I took from it, the thoughts that I took from it, actually ended up in shaping my life. And to be fair, I think I would have read the book more than a dozen times over the past 3 decades. And the magic of it is that every time I read it, there is something new that actually crops up. There are some new learnings, something that I didn't fathom or I couldn't get when I last read it or in the previous stage of my life. So the story is about a young bird, a young seagull, whose name is Jonathan Livingston. And Jonathan is somewhat of a contrarian, if I could call him that. Jonathan goes against the existing norms of seagull society, if there is something called a seagull society. He goes against those norms. He's out to seek his higher purpose in life, and he becomes best at doing what he loves the most. So the book goes on to tell us how exactly to live your life, even if you're a contrarian, even if your views do not match the norms of society, the norms of neighborhood, the norms of a flock, the norms of a tribe, whichever way you look at it. And it tells you about the journey that you face when you are stepping onto something like this, something that's against the grain, against the norm. The kind of people you meet, some of them would adore you, some would despise you, some would call you devil, some would call you God. That's how strong and powerful it is. So here's what it did to me. I began to revel in the philosophy that my life is mine to own. Every single moment, every single day, I could actually catch hold of it, shape it. It's more like clay, I could shape it into the manner that I wanted. There were no rights or wrongs. I could play with it exactly the way I wanted. Every decision that I took thereafter, till today, is always the right decision. So there is nothing called wrong decisions. So like I said, and why I call this the anti-gravity, just checking the clicker. So why the anti-gravity? Because the analogy here for me is gravity is fear and failure, something that stays with us all through our lives. It never goes away. And anti-gravity is the vision or the dreams that we have, which is something like the context or the evoke, inspire, what you have as the theme for this, right? So what I'll do, like I said, is I'll give you some of my thoughts, stuff that has worked for me, and hopefully it would form the base of what the future holds for me. So the seagull effect is essentially the manner in which I was affected by this book and continue to use it at leisure and at pleasure to shape my life. So talking about the first thing, which is vision, and I have only 2 big themes to talk about today. So first is the vision, and I will not go deep into why you need a vision and why you need to dream, etc. I think we are all very clear that if you don't have a big picture, if you don't have a vision, chances are you don't know where you're headed. Chances are you may get caught up in the weeds at some stage. So to have a vision, to have a dream, a big dream is critical. Having put that aside, one of the big things that I have learned and I talk about is something called state. A state is who you are. It is what you are. It is your being. It is your intrinsic being, if I can call it that. So the state is what you are when you walk onto a stage, when you walk into a boardroom, or when you walk into a classroom. It's the unsaid communication. It's the unsaid words that speak for themselves. And you could always tweak it. You could be excited. You could be passionate. You could be somber, or you could be sad, right? So there are different kinds of states that you have. But why is state so important, and why am I connecting it to vision? A state is paramount because a state dictates what kind of a vision, what kind of dreams you are capable of having. Are you ready to get into uncharted territory? Are you ready to falter and fail? All of that gets determined by your state. So if you're in a state of confidence, if you're in a state of excitement, passion, chances are that you'll push the envelope. You'll push the envelope, you'll get into areas which are brand new for you, you'll get into areas which are brand new for people, and you would expand yourself. So talking further about state, state is something that is intrinsic. It is internal, it is part of you. Having said that, it doesn't mean that state cannot be changed. State can definitely be changed, and it could be an hour of talk if I was to start talking about how you change your state. But simply put, it's what I call the reality conversation. So if you can, sitting here, decide that you want to get into an excited state or a passionate state, you would actually start distinguishing your reality from the little voice or the sounds or the conversation that goes on within ourselves, right? So if you can learn to distinguish that, you can learn to actually change your state or become conscious of your state. Then again, one of the other ways is something called context or perspective. Context is paramount. Context is decisive. So if you can change the way you look at something, as simply as that, you can change your state. And the last thing about state is, state has what I call a contagion factor. It is infectious. It has a contagion factor because state can spread. So if I'm excited, if I'm passionate, chances are that my teams, chances are that people in the auditorium would get excited. So state has a contagion factor, and you always see it the best when, before any match, when you see a coach talking to his team, or the captain talking to his team, or from the world I come from, before the next battle that you go into, or the next hill that you want to take. So you would actually motivate, get your team excited, get your men excited, move into a different realm, which is state. And then you go and get victories like you've never seen earlier. So state is critical to summarize because state actually dictates how big you can dream, your passion, and how you can actually push the envelope or the boundaries. The second thing, as far as vision is concerned, and something that I observe very carefully and speak about it very often, is all of us are brilliant. All of us are brilliant at looking at life in retrospect, joining the dots, and then saying, wow, I've really been a huge success, okay? And the good part about this is that all of us here, every single person in the world actually, via this auditorium, is a hero, is a genius when we look back at life in retrospect and join the dots. There's no way in hell that you can fail because you will always get the pieces of the puzzle together. But how about actually looking at it the converse? Can you put a stake in the ground? Can you actually push the context? Can you put something in the vision, something that you don't have, something that no one's done? Can you actually reinvent the is or whatever is the status quo? And then start working backwards in solving for it. You find that the power that you have in life, in your career as a student, goes up exponentially if you start to work like that. So put the vision, plant it there, start working with the end in mind, and then see how this whole thing unfolds. It's sheer magic that unfolds. And lastly, of course, with the state, and so what's the vision? What's the big picture? How do you dream? How do you actually formulate a vision? So in my parlance, probably something that I've almost patented, if I could call it that, is simple. Think big, think crazy. Think stupid. Think so crazy that you yourself get a little shocked at the way you're thinking or the kind of vision that you're formulating. The vision should be so overwhelming for anyone that hears of it, and that's the start point for you. Post that, how do you move ahead with that vision? What do you actually do? Are you capable of dreaming with your eyes open? Can you actually, when you formulate a vision, think about, can you be the first in the world to do something? That's a big one. Can you be the first in the world to do something? And the best part is, you don't need to know how to do it, you just need to know how to dream it. That's the big thing about vision. Connecting that, the other big thing is, how do you actually start voicing or declaring that vision? So you formulated a vision, you think it's big, it's absolutely kick-ass, how do you actually start converting it into reality? And one of my big learnings is that you need to go and voice it in the open. Get onto a stage like this, get in with your teams, get into your classroom, and actually voice it. And when you voice it, when you voice that vision, it starts becoming real. It actually starts getting a shape, and you find people like you, people all across you, your society, starts working with you to realize that vision. So that was all about vision and state. And just the one last aspect, all of this needs to be simple. The simpler the better, the less the jargon, the better. And that's one of the big learnings that I've had over the years. So moving on, and I said, it is anti-gravity force, okay? So like I said, gravity is fear and failure, stuff that will pull you down. And the anti-gravity is the vision that we just spoke about, your dreams and the vision. So now moving on to the gravity portion, which is fear and failure. And very simply put, and I started with it, failure and fear are something that will remain with you till the last days of your life. Whether you're a student, whether you're in a classroom, whether you're in a B school like this, whether you're in the real world, whether I was in the army, whether you're on an operation or a mission, it stays with you at any given time. You will always have butterflies. But the big part and the one single thing that I talk about very often is start playing for failure. Consciously start playing for failure. If you're not failing 5, 7, 8, 10 times a week, there's something wrong. You're not playing enough. You're not pushing the boundaries. You're sitting in a spot where you're comfortable. You're sitting in a comfort zone. You refuse to walk into uncharted territories or troubled waters because you're comfortable. And you will never expand the horizon unless you get comfortable with failure. Simple. The other part to failure, and the way I've worked on it over the years is there has to be, let me see how to word it, give me a second. It's a saying that was very close to me over the years. It says that a ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for, right? So you have to get into uncharted territories, troubled waters, like I said. That is what builds the resilience. That is what helps shape you to what you are. If you don't do that, you would be sitting with a Me Too strategy, following a ground that someone else has actually laid out, following a track or a beaten track that has been laid out by someone else. So actually venture forth into troubled waters, and you will succeed like never before, or at least that's what I've learned over the years. Okay, so the last thing that I would like to talk about here in this portion is about fear. And I said fear and failure typically move hand in hand. We all have fear. Fear is, to me, fear can never be conquered, right? At the maximum, you can actually cross the chasm of fear, as I call it, move to the other side, and continue with life. Continue to start that game, and then it depends whether you fail or succeed. But fear is something that can never be conquered. Don't even try and conquer it. It is just something that you can step across, cross the chasm, cross the valley, call it what you want, get to the other side and start playing the game. And that's all that there is about fear. And I remember I've been fearful. I can go on for hours telling you about my fears. Okay? So it's not that because I'm standing here, there are no fears or there never were fears. I remember one of the times when I was most petrified, perhaps in my life, was I was about 16 or 17, 16 and a half years of age, and I was in the National Defense Academy, or the NDA. And one of the things that is mandated by the NDA is that by the time you're in the second or third term, you need to actually go and jump from what is called the 10-meter board. So for those of you who are swimmers or follow swimming, the highest board that you have where divers dive from is the 10-meter board. So it was mandatory for us, and if you don't do it, you could lose 6 months, you could get relegated. Now that was perhaps one of the biggest ordeals that I have ever faced. It was the biggest nightmare. How do you actually climb up virtually to your death, right? And then what happens is when you actually get onto the plank or the diving board, as you call it, it starts shaking. And you have nothing. There's no cement. There's nothing to hold on to. And you're actually virtually walking the plank. And you reach the edge, and the board is swinging. And here's what you need to do. You see the water far away below you, right? And the board is swinging, and you are supposed to take that next step and fall into the water, which is absolutely petrifying until you do it for the first time. And once you do it, you fall into the water, you go deep down, you surface after some time, gasping for breath, and you realize that the water never really hurt you. The water is there to actually embrace you. And then you do it the second time, and the third time, and the fourth time. And that's what it is about fear. So you need to cross the chasm, you need to get onto the other side, and that's how, and you know, the analogy and the book that I've read, so Jonathan had a vision in this book that, why could I not dive from 8,000 feet? And his mother told him, seagulls are not meant to do that. Seagulls are not meant to stall. It's blasphemy, it's a sin. You can't do that, John. And yet he does it. And he practices and practices, virtually gets to near death till the time he succeeds. Just another thought, and it's sporadic. So how do you actually get used to failing? Okay, and this is something very close to my heart. I call it start formulating little games. Start playing the little games where the stakes are not very high. And why I use the word games is a game ends up in a winner and a loser. The stakes are not high. You know that one party will win and the other party will lose. So start playing little games with your life. And what I mean by that, it could be something as simple. Let me come up with something. So it could be something as simple as one of you wanting to learn the guitar and becoming part of the school or the college band, right? So you say, next 6 months, I want to learn the guitar and I want to be part of the college band. Or it could be, for those of us who've never run more than 500 meters in your entire life, you could actually take on that I want to be part of a marathon. I want to run the next Airtel marathon and I want to come in the top 50. Now that's a small little game. Give yourself a time. And I could go on. So keep building those little games where you're sitting, whether you're in college, whether you're in the army, whether you're in the corporate world, whether you're in the boardroom, irrespective of geographies. And what that does is it teaches you to fail. It teaches you to fail when stakes are small. You get into the habit of failing. And guys, the amount you learn when you fail is probably exponentially higher than when you succeed. Because when you succeed, you're perched pretty, feeling good about yourself, victorious, right? And when you fail, you actually get back to the drawing board and understand, hey, what went wrong? How do I improve? So get into the habit of failing. And yes, so let me end. Let me actually end, and let me tell you about something that I heard, something that was as erratic as me at times. Something that I heard many years ago in one of the forums that I actually attended. So let me step back. A lot of us sit here, like my friend here, a lot of us sit here thinking that our present is, who we are in the present today is actually because of what we faced in the past. So Kulmeet is here today because I schooled here, this is the way I grew up, this is the cultural nuances, this is the economic strata that I actually came from. And so, you know, all of that, the city, I was talking to Joseph, who's from Alapi in Kerala, all of that has shaped me to be who I am today. So the past is responsible for my present. So here's the weird one. Your past has nothing to do with who you are in the present. It has absolutely nothing. It is the future that you're living into that actually shapes and determines who you are. I'll say it again. So it is the future that you're living into that actually gives you your present. And let me explain the way they had explained it to me. It's one of the best learnings that I've had in my life. So we love going on our holidays, which most of you do, vacation time. I have a family, I have 2 girls. And here's what I noticed, whether it's in holiday in Hawaii or the backwaters of Kerala for Joseph, what happens is that you book your tickets a few weeks or a few months or a couple of months in advance, and you then have that future that you're living into. You have that vision that you're going after, that, you know, I am going for a holiday to Hawaii or to Kerala. And just observe what happens or what transpires in those 2 or 3 weeks. There is an excitement in the family. There is an excitement with the children. There's an excitement with you. And in that duration, the excitement sometimes gets so much that kids would love to have their bags open in their room 3 weeks before going. They would come in, and since they are girls, they would come in and put in a dress, take out the same one, put in a new one the next day, put in shades, put in a hat. And that's where the excitement becomes palpable. and you're actually living in an excited world weeks before the future has actually hit you, because you're actually living for that future. So it is the future that determines your present. Your state, everything that I spoke about today is determined by the future. And what is future in today's parlance? Future is nothing but your vision. Future is nothing but your dreams. So back to the point, dream big, dream crazy. Do crazy stuff, go against the norms. It's perfect. It's your life. It's your life to shape. It's your life to mold. There is no right or wrong. It is your decision finally, and every decision that you take is right. So thanks a lot. Thanks for the patient hearing, and all the best for the rest of your time here and for the real world once you get out. And a very happy Diwali, of course, to all of you. Thanks a lot.